Hello, it's Thursday. Now, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of months ago, I made a giant rainbow mantis shrimp, who I believe I named Archibald Shrimpington. Well, based on your reactions to that video, as well as popular demand, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a little shrimpling that is heavily based on Archibald. Let's get into tools and materials. Okay, let's talk tools and materials. So to make your little shrimpling today, you're going to need 8-ply, 100% acrylic yarn in a whole bunch of colors, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. You're also going to need a 3.5mm hook, pins and needles, scissors, and some stuffing. Now, let's talk about colors. Okay, so you do need quite a few colors for Shrimpy, but not all of them are mandatory. In fact, I would say you could probably get away with just these 4 colors if you really needed to. So we have a dark green, white, a bright blue, and a red. Now, if you want to be a little bit extra like me today, you can also include a bright green, an orange, an ice blue, and some purple. So those are all the colors I will be using today, but as mentioned, you can really get away with using just these 4. A written version of today's pattern will be made available to my patrons and will also be made available on Etsy, and I will leave links to both in the description down below for anybody who's interested. And this is just a reminder that this is a complicated knots pattern, which means we will be focusing on the more complicated stuff and kind of just skimming over anything that I consider to be on the easier end of things. And that's a size comparison of what the difference between Archibald Shrimpington and the shrimpling is. Okay, so to start today, we're going to start by making a little base piece. And I'm going to be using my ice blue for this. And this color is really only visible if you look at the underside of your shrimp. So you can feel free to use like your main sky blue for this if you would prefer. So in my ice blue, I'm going to start with a magic ring of 6. Like so, and then 6 single crochet around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In row 3, we're going to work 3 repeats of a single crochet and an increase. So there is our first one, and we're going to work 2 more of those to bring us up to 9 stitches around. Row 4 is 3 repeats of a single crochet, an increase, and a single crochet. So there's our first one, and we're going to do that 2 more times around to bring our row up to 12. So we have a tiny little pimple shape here. Row 5 is 3 repeats of 3 single crochet, and then an increase. So there is our first one, and we're going to do 2 more of those to bring our round up to 15 stitches. So there we go, we have 15 stitches in our round, and that is the shrimpling's head. So now we're going to work 4 rows of 15 single crochet for a combined total of 60 stitches. And that's 60. So we have a right proper nub. And in row 10, we're back to doing 3 repeats. So we've got 3 repeats of 2 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 more single crochet. So there is our first one, and we're going to do that 2 more times to bring our round up to 18. And then row 11 is 3 repeats of 5 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an increase. So there is our first repeat, and we're going to do that 2 more times to get our round up to 21 stitches. And there we go. So that is the like upright front part of the body, and now we kind of just need to make the back half, which kind of slopes off like a little slug. So row 12 starts with 5 single crochet. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then 3 increases. And I am working invisible increases, which just means I'm working the first stitch of the increase through just the front loop and then the second stitch of each increase through both loops. And that is completely up to personal preference. Standard increases will be perfectly fine here. And then it's just 13 single crochet back to the start of our round. So that's 2, 3, 11, 12, and 13. So we should have 24 stitches in our round. Row 13 starts with 17 single crochet. It's 1, 2, 3, 15, 16, and 17. We're then going to work a decrease, 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and a final decrease to bring us back to the start of our round. So in row 14, we're going to be growing out this back again. So we start with 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to work 6 increases across the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then 11 single crochet back to the start of our round. 11. So at this point, your round should be up to 28 stitches, and that is the widest that this piece is going to get because we're going to start being more aggressive when we're closing off the front. So row 15 starts with 22 single crochet around. It's 1, 2, 3, 20, 21, and 22. And then 3 decreases across the front back to the start of our round. Row 16 starts with a decrease, then 19 single crochet, 17, 18, 19, then 2 decreases back to the start of our round. Then row 17 starts with a single crochet 3 together. So all that means is we're going to be decreasing over 3 stitches instead of 2. So how we work those is you insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, insert your hook into the second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then insert your hook through the third stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. This leaves you with 4 loops in total on your hook. We're then just going to yarn over and pull through all 4. So with that single crochet 3 together done, we're going to work 16 single crochet around. 1, 2. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you, those of you who have been here for a while and maybe followed a few of my patterns may notice that I'm not doing invisible decreases today. Now, you can feel free to do them the invisible way today, but just because of how we're going to be making one of the body parts later, in general, this whole pattern just becomes a whole lot easier if we're just doing standard decreases the whole way. 14, 15, and 16. And then another single crochet 3 together to get us back to the start of our round, which should leave you with 18 stitches in your opening. And row 18 is basically the same thing again. So we single crochet 3 together, work 12 single crochet around, so 11 and 12, and then a single crochet 3 together back to the start of the round. And at this point, with 14 stitches left in our opening, we're going to stop and we're going to stuff this base piece quite firmly. And I need a new bag of stuffing to do that, so hold on. There's that good puffy stuff. So we're just going to tear it up into little puffs and just shove them on in there, one little puff at a time. So this is a base piece that we're going to be attaching all of the other pieces to. So that is why I encourage you to stuff it fairly firmly. And we want to go all the way up to the opening. There we go. And so now we're just going to work our final 2 rows, which are very similar to what we've been working so far. So row 19 is a single crochet 3 together, 8 single crochet around, and a single crochet 3 together, bringing you down to 10 stitches, And then row 20 is a single crochet 3 together, 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then another single crochet 3 together. And finish off. So this is going to leave you with a tiny little opening at the end, and we're just going to take our remaining tail and pull it through the front loops only of each of the remaining stitches. 5, and pull tight to close. Just weave that into the body. Be our little secret. There we go. So there is our little shrimp base. And most of this is going to end up covered. So we're going to pop this to one side and we're going to make the eyes next. So for our little eyes, please excuse this fellow who hasn't quite pulled himself together yet. But for the eyes, we're going to start in our white. And we will begin with a magic ring of 6. There we go. In row 2, we're going to work 6 increases around to bring our round up to 12. Like so. And then we're going to work 12 single crochet in our white, changing to our blue in the 12th stitch. And this is the first color change for today, so we will do it together. So 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, and this is 11. So we have 1 white stitch to go, and we're going to use it to change to our bright blue or sky blue, basically the blue that you want to be visible on your final shrimp. So a color change is always worked in the stitch before you need the new color to be active, which is why we're working it into the 12th stitch of this round. And to work it, we're just going to insert our hook into the next stitch around, yarn over and pull up a loop of our white. So we have 2 loops of white on our hook. And then just going to hold that out of the way, grab a strand of the color we're changing to, and pinch it on the inside of the work at the base of the stitch. Then yarn over and pull it through both of the loops on your hook. Tug on the white tail and scooch that stitch on down a little bit just to settle it in place, which will leave you with a white single crochet, but your new color is on your hook, ready to go for the next stitch. And we are just going to take a second and tie those 2 tails together, just to really lock things in place, and trim off our white. So I'm kind of sorry for this, but the next 2 rows involve using post stitches, which isn't something that comes up, I think, anywhere else in this pattern, but I do feel strongly about their use here. So we're going to run through that technique now. So normally when we're working crochet, we work through the loops on the top of the stitch, but each stitch also has a little post underneath those loops. And when you're working post stitches, you're working around the post instead of through the loops. Now, for row 4, we're going to be working 12 front post single crochet. So what that means is we insert our hook from the front of the piece, around the post, and back to the front of the piece. And if you're not sure which stitch to start in, start by inserting your hook through the loops of the next stitch that you would work into normally, and then up and around the post. Then it's just a matter of you yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and complete your single crochet. So there is our first front post single crochet, and we're going to work 11 more of those around back to the start. That's 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, and that's our 12th. So there is our row of front post single crochet done, and then this is the bit I'm actually sorry about. Row 5 is then 12 back post single crochet. So in row 4, we were working from the front of the stitch, round the back of the post, back to the front of the stitch. In row 5, we're going to insert our hook from the back of the work, around the post and back to the back of the work. Once again, yarning up and pulling up a loop, and then yarning over and completing our stitch back there. And what that's going to do is leave a pair of loops visible the whole way around the outside of the eye and create like this socket that the eye feels like it's set back into. So there is our first one. We're going to do that the whole way around. 2, 3, 11 and 12. So you should still have 12 stitches in your round. If you can't tell where the 12th stitch is, because sometimes it can be tricky, count backwards from your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then this is stitch 12. Right there. But that should be it for post-stitching for this pattern. And I'm sorry to put you through it, but it does bring something important, I think, to these eyes. So in row 6, we're going back to working through the loops, and we're going to work 3 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and a single crochet. So there is our first one, and we're going to do 2 more of those to bring our row down to 9 stitches. At this point, we're just going to pop a little bit of stuffing in there. Not a lot, there's not going to be a lot of room, but just a little bit will help hold its shape. Then row 7 is 3 repeats of a single crochet and a decrease. So there is 1, and we're going to work 2 more of those to bring our round down to 6 stitches. And there we go. Row 8 is just 6 single crochet around. And row 9 is 2 repeats of a single crochet and then a decrease. So there's 1, then we're going to do it again. Single crochet and decrease. And finish off. So there is one inquisitive little eyeball, and I'm just going to whip up a second one now. Ta-da! So now he's peeping. So I'm going to pop those to one side with the body, and we're going to make the antenna next. Now, I could have built these into the body, but I thought that they might read a little creepy to some people, so I wanted to make sure that it was really easy to like leave them off if you didn't want to add them. But in any case, I'm going to be making mine in my bright blue, and we're going to start by chaining 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5, and a turning chain, and I pull my turning chains quite tightly. You might want to as well. Then we're going to turn, and starting in the second chain from our hook, work 5 slip stitches back down them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're then going to chain 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then a turning chain for 8. So pulled quite tightly again, and turn. And then once again, starting in the second chain from our hook, we're going to work 5 slip stitches down those chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and finish off. So there is that little piece, and you'll note that that leaves us with 2 unworked chains in the middle. And basically we could have worked this as 2 separate pieces, but that would have meant that we would have had to fiddle around with sewing on 2 tiny little pieces instead of one slightly larger piece. And this way it kind of helps keep them spaced the right distance apart as well. So popping those antennae to one side. So next up, we're going to make the little scuttly legs. And to do this, you're just going to need your red, and they are the easiest little piece ever. They're a basic magic ring of 4. And then 4 rows of 4 single crochet for a combined total of 16 stitches. Finish off. Tuck that end down inside. So there is our first little leg. And we do need to make 6 of those in total. Now, if you're finding that working a tube of 4 single crochet is just too hard or too fiddly, you can go up to a magic ring of 5 single crochet and then work rows of 5 single crochet. It will change the proportions of your shrimp slightly, but if it's going to make it less miserable for you, absolutely choose happiness here. Okay, so there are all 6 little legs done. So we're going to pop those to one side. And next up, we're going to make the little punchy claw arms. So for this, I'm going to start in my red. And if you happen to have orange available, have that handy as well. So we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. Then 6 increases to bring our round up to 12. Then row 3 is 12 single crochet around. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12. Row 4 starts with 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. Then 3 decreases. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 single crochet back to the start of our round. That leaves you with just 9 stitches in your round. Then row 5 starts with 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. A single crochet 3 together. And then 3 single crochet changing to our orange. That's 1, 2, and then our color change, just the same way we did for the eyes. Now you don't have to change to your orange. This piece looks perfectly fine all in red, but I'm choosing to use orange today. There we go. So with our orange on our hook, we're going to work 7 single crochet around. 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. And we're going to pause at this point to trim off our red and put a little bit of stuffing into that claw. There we go. That's his little puncher. Pow, pow. Row 7 starts with 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and then an increase, 3 single crochet all into the same stitch, and an increase. Then it's just a decrease to get us back to the start of our round. So at this point we have just 10 stitches left in our round. Row 8 starts with a decrease, then 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, then an increase, 3 single crochet all into the same stitch, 1, 2, and 3, and another increase. Then we have a single crochet and a decrease to get us back to the start of our round, which should be up to 12 stitches at this point. And then row 9 is a single crochet 3 together, 6 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and another single crochet 3 together. There we go. So you've got the like little punchy bit here, and then this is the arm. And we're just going to take a second and put a little bit more stuffing in, just to help pad out that arm section. And then we're going to work our final row, which is row 10, and it is just 4 decreases around. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and finish off. So we have a little opening here, just like we did at the end of the body piece. So I'm just going to take our remaining piece of yarn and weave it through the front loops only of those last 4 stitches. And pull it tight to close. And then just tuck it away inside the arm. There we go. So now we have one little arm and we of course need 2 of them. So let's just do so there are our 2 little arms. We're going to pop those to one side as well. So we actually have most of the main limbs there now. So all we're missing are the feather details, of which we have like 5 different variations to make, and the shell detail for down the back. So we're going to do the shell next, I think. Well, I know, I'm the one with the power. I say shell. So this shell is one of those pieces where I've managed to combine a whole lot of pieces into one, which makes it a little bit trickier, but I don't think it's too bad. I don't. So to start with, what you're going to need is your light green and your dark green, though you can get away with just using dark green if that's all you have available. And you're also going to need some of your blue as well. So starting in our light green, and we are going to chain 9. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then a turning chain for the 9th, which I pull quite tightly. Then turn, and starting in the 2nd chain from our hook, we're going to work 8 single crochet across those chains. 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8. Chain 1 and turn. Row 3, we're going to start with an increase. 6 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then another increase, chain 1 and turn, and then row 4 is an increase, 8 single crochet across, 1, 2, 7, and 8. And in the last stitch of our row, we're going to work another increase, but we're going to use it to change to our dark green. So to do that with an increase, we work the first stitch of it as per usual. And then in the 2nd stitch, we use it as a color change. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop of your old color, hold it out of the way, grab a strand of the color we're changing to, pinch it at the base of the stitch on the back of the work, yarn over and pull through both loops. Scooch it down into position and then just tie your ends together. And of course, if you're working this all in one color, you don't have to worry about doing this as a color change, but you just work it as a regular increase. There we go. And trim off the light green. Now in our dark green, we're going to chain 1 and turn. So with our dark green on our hook, we're now going to work 3 rows of 12 single crochet, chaining 1 and turning at the end of each row. That's 1. That's 2. And that's 3, which brings us to row 8. So in row 8, we're going to be working the whole row in the back loops only. So when you look down at your stitches, you'll note that there's a loop on the side of the work facing you and a loop on the side facing away. So for the whole of row 8, we're going to be working just through the loop on the side facing away from us. And it's going to be 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a decrease, and then 5 more single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we'll be chaining 1 and turning, but I just want to show you, see how that leaves a row of front loops free across the front of it? We're going to be using that to help break this armor piece up into shell segments later. So if you think you'll need help finding those loops again, I suggest you mark them now with just like a little piece of scrap yarn or similar. Honestly, I think they stand out a lot, like quite well, and you won't need any markers, but I'll just chuck a marker in there now for display purposes only. All right, so we chained one and we're turning. In row 11, we're going back to working through both loops, and it's going to be 11 single crochet back to the other side. Chain one and turn. Row 10 starts with a decrease, 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 3 single crochet all into the same stitch, 1, 2, 3, 3 more single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and a second decrease to bring us to the end of the row. Chain one and turn. Row 11 starts with a decrease, then 7 single crochet across, and another decrease to end the row. Chain one and turn. So row 12 is worked in the back loops only again, and it's 9 single crochet. And then we chain one and turn. We're then going back to working through both loops of our stitch, and it's going to be 3 rows of 9 single crochet, chaining one and turning at the end of each row. That's 2. And that's 3. So that brings us to the end of row 15, and we should look a little something like this. Row 16 is once again into the back loops only, and we're going to start with a decrease, then 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and another decrease, chain one and turn. In row 17, we're going back to working through both loops. We're going to start with a decrease, then 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and another decrease. Chain one and turn. Row 18 starts with a decrease, then just 1 single crochet and another decrease. Chain one and turn, and for our final row we're working a single crochet 3 together and finish off. So that is the base of our shell piece, and you should be able to see pretty easily when you look at it, formed by those loops, 1, 2, 3, 4 distinct sections. So now we're going to grab our blue and we're going to delineate these sections. This is kind of like the magic trick of this particular piece. So I'm just going to put my blue on my hook with a regular slip knot, and I'm going to attach to my work right here in the original starting point, so that the first stitches I'll be working are along that base chain. Now there are 2 ways of attaching to your work here. I think there's like the quote unquote easier way, which is a slip stitch, then chain one and single crochet into the same stitch, and that will count as the first single crochet of this particular step. Or you can do it the way I tend to sort of default to, which is with a standing single crochet, which just means that you go straight in and work a single crochet straight away. Either way is fine, as long as you're attaching in that first stitch with the ridges of it facing upwards, the tail end of it pointing towards you, and we're working along this base chain first. So to delineate this top section, we're going to work 8 stitches along those chains, including the one we just worked to attach. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We're then going to rotate and working down the edge of the rows. We're going to work 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to rotate again. And now we're going to be working into those front loops that kind of split off this section of the shell. Just take my little marker out. So it is 12 single crochet into those front loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and one final rotation, and we're going to work 6 single crochet up the edges of these rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I'm just going to slip stitch through that first stitch that we worked to close off the loop and finish off. So you'll see there that now we have a very defined top section to this shell. And what we need to do for steps 21, 22, and 23 is do the same thing around each of these like bottom sections of the shell and make them all look like their own distinct pieces too. So once again, I'm going to grab my blue and attach it to my hook. And from now on, with the tail end of the piece facing away from us, we're always going to be attaching here along this right hand edge and working them as like 1 scoop, 2 scoops, 3 scoops. So I'm attaching right here using either method to attach that we went through at the start. And we're going to work 3 single crochet in total, including our starting stitch down those edges. So that's 2 and 3. Then rotate and work 9 single crochet along the front loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and one last rotation and 3 single crochet up the edges of the rows. 1, 2, and 3, and finish off. So there is our second scoop done. So for this third scoop, we're once again going to be attaching right here and working that exact same row again. So it's 3 stitches down the edges, 9 single crochet across the front loops, and then rotate and 3 single crochet up the edges. 1, 2, 3, and finish off. So that's what we currently look like. We have one last little scoop to go, and we're going to attach right here. So then it's 3 single crochet down the edges, including our starting stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 1 single crochet into the final stitch of row 19, and then 3 single crochet up the other edges. 1, 2, 3, and finish off. So that is what that piece ends up looking like. And I'm just going to take a second to just like weave all of these pieces in a little bit. They don't have to be like perfectly tucked away, but as long as they're like closer to the middle of the shell, they'll be covered over with the assembly part of the process, which will just neaten up everything for us a little bit. There we go. So that's all my ends. And that is what that piece looks like. It's his little jacket. And that's how we get away with only making 1 piece instead of 4. So popping this to one side, and we are finally going to start working on the feathers. Now, the feathers are something that like, it's the trickiest construction, I think, for this whole particular creature, but I am the proudest with the solution I've come up with for them. Because for the big one, I had to make them as like 2 separate pieces each and then sew them together and then add a bunch of fringe and add a bunch of details to them. But these are relatively simple for what they turn out as. So for these, I want you to grab your red and your blue. That's it, just the red and the blue. And I'm going to start by making the feathers that run down the sides of the shell. And we do have a left version of those and a right version of those because the direction that they face does matter. So we're going to start with our right ones. And I'm grabbing my red. And all I want you to do is chain 24. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 is our turning chain. So we pull that last one quite tightly. We're then going to turn, and starting in the second chain from our hook, we're going to work 1 red single crochet, changing to our blue. So it's the same way we've done all of the other color changes so far. Tie those little ends together to lock everything in place and trim off your red. You're ready for, it's not really even a magic trick. For some reason, I'm just really excited to show you. So in our blue, we're going to work a single crochet 3 together, 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So there is our first little feather. We're then going to work another single crochet 3 together, 1, 2, 3, and chain 3, 1, 2, 3 for a second little feather. We're then going to be working single crochet 5 together. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want you to know that this technique does get more ridiculous before it gets better. So there we go, chain 3. And we're going to do that 2 more times. So single crochet 5 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yarn over and pull through all 5 and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and one more, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yarn over and pull through all of the loops. And we're going to finish by just slip stitching into the final chain. There we go, and finish off. So that's what they look like from the back. That's right, I said the back. If you like them the way they look here, you can absolutely use them that way. But if you flip them over, look at all that bonus detailing we're getting. So this is the way up that I intend for them to be used, and that's just saving us from having to stitch on a bunch of little extra details. It just works. So that's the line of feathers that's going to go down the right-hand side of our shrimp. And now we need to make the line that's going to go down the left-hand side of the shrimp. And they are constructed basically the exact same way. It's just during row 2, we work the 3 single crochet 5 togethers first, and then the 2 single crochet 3 togethers. And finish off. So there we go. Now we have our feathers running with the 3 big ones and the 2 little ones the other direction. So there we have our right feathers. So there we have our right feathers and our left feathers. And as mentioned, you are more than welcome to do them the other way if you prefer the more clean look. You still end up with a right and a left. They're just the other way around. So popping those to one side, we're going to use the exact same technique now to make some feathers for the end of the tail. So starting in our red, we are going to start by chaining 28. 1, 2, 3, 26, 27, and 28 is our turning chain. So we'll just pull that one a little bit tighter. Then turn, and starting in the second chain from our hook, we're going to work 1 red single crochet, changing to our blue. This tail is made up of 3 key feathers, and they're quite large. So we're going to work a single crochet 8 together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I have 9 loops in total on my hook, my active loop, and then 8 loops that I've pulled up through 8 stitches. Then yarn over and pull through all 9 of those loops, creating one nice big feather and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. So there is our first tail feather. The middle feather is bigger again, so it's going to be single crochet 10 together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I have 11 loops in total on my hook right now, and we're just going to yarn over and pull through all 11. There we go for one giant middle feather, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have another side feather, which is a single crochet 8 together again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we're just going to chain 1 and finish off. So that is what we look like from one side. Turn it over, and that's the fancier side with all of the extra little details included in them. And once again, you can use these up whichever way you prefer. So that's the tail done. And we have just one more piece left to make. And we have to make 2 of it, but it's still just one more piece, and that is those face feathers, which I believe are like attenules or something like that. I knew what they were called right around the time I made the big shrimp, but I have forgotten in the meantime. So to make the face feathers, once again, starting in our red, we're going to start by chaining 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the 10th is a turning chain, so pull it a little bit tighter. Turn, and then starting in the second chain from your hook, we're going to work a red single crochet, attaching our blue. Then in our blue, we're going to work a slip stitch, a single crochet 5 together, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then there should be 2 chains left, and we're going to work a slip stitch into each of them. So 1 and 2. Finish off. Now, to help form the shape of this little piece, I'm then just going to grab the red and the blue tail on one side and the red and blue tail on the other, and we're just going to tie them in a knot. We don't want it to scrunch up, but we just want to pull those 2 ends in together. There we go. So there is that little face feather up one way and up the other way. So yeah, again, these feathers are reversible. You can use them whichever way you like. We'll be using them up this way today. So there is one, and we just need to make a second one. Ta-da! So there we have our 2 little face feathers, and that is actually the final 2 pieces that we needed to make. So let's bring everything back onto the screen. Okay, so there are all of our pieces, and just as a interesting point of comparison, this is what all of the pieces for the big one looked like, all laid out. Yeah, so worked really hard to get that number down for you. So let's start assembling. And the first thing I want to do is just take these eyes and add a couple of little details to them. So we'll scooch everything else out of the way. And I'm going to be grabbing my purple for this. So purple is another one of our optional colors, and that is because it is basically just used to add this completely optional little detail to the eyeballs. Like, looks completely fine without this. So all I'm going to do is take my purple yarn, and I'm just going to use it to stitch around the edge of the white here, weaving it in and out between the stitches. So you could do this with a crafting needle. You don't need a sharp needle for this. And then I go around again, working my needle under each of the previously made purple stitches. There is definitely a name for this stitch. I want to call it a whip stitch, but I don't know. Tell me in the comments if you happen to know the name of this particular embroidery technique. So there we go. That is the extent of what I'm doing with the purple. And that's what I mean when I say it's an optional color, it's an optional detail. Anything more than this just ends up overwhelming the eyeball. But now that I've done that to one, I'm going to do it to the other one. So there we go. We've added that detail to both eyes now. So now we're actually going to get into like the real assembly. first up, we're going to assemble his little face. Now, if you grab your base piece, you have a finishing off point, which will have this weird little texture on it. And that little texture is the underside of your shrimp. And then we have our starting magic ring and a point, and that is the head. So we have a number of little pieces to fit onto this tiny little nub at the top. So first off, we're going to grab our eyes, and I just want you to pin them to either side of that pointy bit at the top. That's one. And that's two. So you see here that they're at the very top of that point. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my blue and sew those on. So there we go. Now, make sure you've removed all pins, and we're going to stop and we're going to tuck our ends in as well. There's so many pieces to attach that we're going to work as cleanly as possible. So just tucking in our ends and removing pins as we go, and just keeping everything as orderly as we can. Okay, so now he can see us as we work. The next thing we're going to do is grab the face feathers, and you will have to decide now which way out you want them to be. I want my little speckly side out, and we're going to pin those to either side of the face, just below those eyeballs. So 1 and 2. So these pieces do have a lot of tails on them. There is a gap between them on the head here. If I scooch them all out of the way, you can see that there. So there is a gap between them. And once we weave all those tails in, that'll make a little more sense, but we are going to just sew those on into that position. Try to think of them like a mustache. So however you would position a mustache to make a facial expression, that's how these two little pieces should work. Once again, remove the pins and tuck all of your ends in. And you may notice that I've snuck a little pin in between the eyes there just to hold them together. That's just to offer them a little bit of support while they get thrown around a bit during assembly. So there we go. As you can see, there is a gap in between them. And we're just going to take our antennae and pin those in between as well. And you're going for like the look of almost a little bow. Is going to stop them from looking too creepy. So the feathers are kind of like the loops of the bow, and then these are like the tails of the bow. All scooched up right at the top of that little head area. And we're going to sew that on as well. There we go. And once again, tuck all of our ends in. So next up, we're going to be grabbing our arms, and they go on either side of the body with like the main bend at the top, kind of scooching up just underneath where those feathery bits go. So I'm just going to pin them loosely in place, and then we'll move them around if necessary. That's 1. And that's 2. And at the same time, I'm going to grab the legs. I'm going to pin those to the underside of the body as well. Now, these are the main point of stability for our little guy. So pin them carefully, and then we're going to test to see if he stands up okay and if he balances all right, because he does tend to be a little front heavy. So I'm just pinning 3 of those little legs down each side. 3. So there's those. That's what it looks like from underneath. If I pop him down, he does lean forward a little bit onto his front claws. So I might scooch these front ones forward just a little bit, just to stop him tipping over. So we'll scooch him all the way up under that elbow. That's a little further forward, and that's better. So now he's not tipping as far forward. He's not using his front claws for balance. He's sitting nicely on his own. So that's as much difference as just like moving them like 0.5 millimeter forward can make, just to that balance. So we are going to stop and just sew all of those on now. And I could have absolutely used my blue for this. It would have blended in fairly nicely, but I had the opportunity here to swap to my red, and so I went with that instead. And we're sewing on all 6 legs and both arms at this point, removing pins as we go and tucking all of our ends in too. So now we just have our final decorations. So next up, we're going to do the side feathers. So we have distinctive left feathers and right feathers. And in both cases, you have 3 big and 2 little ones. The little ones are meant to be at the back towards the tail. So we're going to line these up just over the top of where we've attached the legs, but they should start behind the arm. So this is a little bit of an exercise in squeezing. You can bunch them up together a little bit. Down the side. And I believe I've made my shrimp slightly crooked, just in the assembly process. And you know what? That's just who I am as a person and as a designer. Sometimes things are gonna be crooked and I just don't mind. In fact, I think it's better that way. So that's one side, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Big feathers at the front, directly over the top of where we've attached those legs. Okay, now before I sew those on, I do need to test to make sure that my shell is going to cover enough of the surface area. So I'm just going to drape that loosely over the back. And I can see here there's a little bit of a gap, so I need to move these feathers up. But I should only have to do that on one side. So I'll move these feathers just up the body a little bit, just to make sure that that gap is getting filled. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, just to hedge my bets a little bit. Now, when I put that over the top, it should cover all of the edges on both sides. Okay, good. So once again, you can honestly use any color you like for this because it's going to show a little bit of a detail. I think I might use my purple. I'm just going to stitch these feathers on down each side. Now, because I'm using contrasting yarn, I have to be a bit more careful with my stitches. If you were using a matching yarn, you wouldn't have to worry about it. You could just stitch them on. There we go. Take all the pins out, weave all the ends in. It's a pretty good chance that that little purple stitch is not even going to be visible. But we'll know it's there. Sometimes that's what it's about. Okay, there we go. So that's the little feathers attached to either side. Put these little face feathers back out. That can probably come out now. So now all we have left to attach are the tail feathers and the actual shell. So the tail feathers go across the back here, and we're putting them on top of the other feathers so that they show up okay. So we're going to start by pinning the center one in place, and then scooching the other two up next to it. Because when they bunch up, they look much more like a tail fin. And once again, I'm just going to sleeve fold this over the back and just make sure that they're visible, and they are. It looks splendid. And I'm going to sew those three little feathers on as well. And I've used up that last strand of purple, so I'm going to use my blue for this time. Once again, weave our ends in. There's a lot of ends to make a shrimp. That's what I'm learning today. Whole lot of ends. There we go. And last but not least, we are finally going to attach our shell piece. So as you've probably seen as I've been trying it on as we go, this big section here that's kind of like the top layer of it is the bit that runs down the top of the back. And then these three sections run down the tail. So we're just going to fit the top section just behind the eyes there. So pin it in the middle and fold the edges down each side. There we go. So that's one section. And I'm going to just like fit each section one at a time to make sure everything is sitting nicely and all of the ends are tucked away on the inside. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just sew this shell on, and I'm going to do that by sewing around the whole outside edge, as well as reinforcing each segment slightly just to anchor it down the body. And there is our finished shrimpy. I know that after I made the big one, there was some call for a pattern for the big one. In fact, there were some cheeky people who told me that I should try and make a no-sew version of it. So this is my compromise. I can't quite, like, it's only been a couple of months and I can't quite bring myself to make another big one of that exact thing because I've got other big projects in mind. But this is my way of like letting y'all take a little bit of shrimpy with you. And in the meantime, if you do want the notes for the big one, they are up on Patreon because they get all of my goodies, even when I don't have the energy to turn them into like full-fledged videos or like produce them like in a full photo version of them. They at least get all of my notes to work from. And in fact, I know that there is at least one other giant shrimp out there in the world that looked phenomenal as well. So you can get the notes for the giant shrimp. It does exist. But this little guy, he's a little bit more manageable. He's a little bit more accessible. He's a little bit more efficient in terms of space and time. And yeah, hopefully you guys love him as much as I do. So there are our finished little shrimplings. I hope you had fun making them with me today. Now, the schedule for April is a little bit weird. You may have noticed that for 2026, we've been focusing on doing 3 videos a month, which is normally fine because there's 4 Thursdays, and so we take a Thursday off. Now, April has 5 Thursdays. So I just wanted to let you know what the schedule was going to be. So there's going to be no video next week, and then a video the week after, and then no video the week after that, and then a video for the final Thursday in April. So that's these dates here, if you were interested. Otherwise, just look for me on Thursdays, and sometimes I'll be there, and sometimes I might not be. But yeah, that's it for this week. Okay, bye.